y'all, today we're getting a lot of stuff prepped for the freezer. Okay, so just to go through what I have for what we're gonna do today, don't mind my mess in the background. I have got 1 bag of celery. I have 2 of these big packs of ground beef. They are just under 5 pounds each. I have 2 rotisserie chickens. I have a 10-pound bag of yellow onions, 2 bags of bell peppers. I have 2 big packs of chicken breast. These are, I think they have about 8 pieces each in each one, so 16 chicken breasts. I have a bag of carrots. I have some packs of bacon. I have some mild cheddar cheese, mozzarella cheese, and Colby Jack cheese. So we are gonna get all of this prepped and ready for the freezer to make our lives easier. Okay, so the first thing that I'm gonna do is go ahead and get our bacon going. I wanna try to get the things that have to cook out of the way first, and that way we're not at the end of the day figuring out we still have something to cook. So what I do with my bacon, I do it in the oven. It is so much easier, and it comes out, in my opinion, perfect every time. We like crispy bacon around here, so it comes out crispy. And of course, that will depend on how long you leave it in the oven. So I just put a piece of aluminum foil down on my pan. This is my big pan. And then I just cut my bacon in half. I find that it just is easier to deal with if you cut it in half. So that is what I have always done. And then I just put it all on my tray. You can get it really close to each other, just don't overlap it, because if you overlap it, then the part that's overlapped won't cook, or it won't cook as much. And then I had just a couple of tiny pieces left. So that is 1 pound of bacon. And I'm going to put that in a cold oven. Turn the heat to 400 degrees Fahrenheit and just let it cook. Now, you see the edge pieces didn't get cooked, so what I'm gonna do is take out the pieces that are done, and they look a little dark on the camera. I don't know why, but you can see as I put them up there, they're not quite as dark as they look down on the pan. But I just put them on some paper towels to let the grease drain off, and then I just popped the uncooked pieces back in the oven until everything was done. And then I'm gonna let that cool down completely, and we'll put that up in a little bit. So the next thing that I'm gonna do, I got 2 big packs of chicken, and the reason I'm doing this video is because I've had several people that have said, what do you do with stuff? Like, how do you freeze your stuff? And all that kind of stuff. Because a lot of times I do pull out like a bag of already diced up onion or something like that. So I figured while I was going through the process of just doing this for my own self, I would share it with y'all. And maybe it'll get you motivated and make your life a lot easier. If you do a lot of meal prep like I do, or just a lot of cooking in general, I mean, obviously because this is a cooking channel, when I can prep things ahead of time, it just makes my life so much easier. So I took 1 of those big packs of chicken, and y'all know I rinse and trim my chicken, but if you don't, honey, you do whatever you want to with yours. So I'm just getting it all trimmed up, and I'm putting 1 entire pack into my crock pot. Now don't worry, I'm cleaning everything in between all the things I'm doing. So 1 crock pot full of chicken. And then I'm going to take the rest of the chicken that I had, the second pack, because we had 2 packs, remember? And I did show y'all that in the beginning because somebody has asked if I would show them like a grocery haul. So I just thought I would put that there in the beginning and show you what we were starting with. So I'm just going to trim these up and break these down. When I cook like a big meal, it usually about 2 chicken breasts is plenty. So I'm just splitting these chicken breasts into 4 bags because I ended up with 7 pieces in this pack of chicken, but I just divided it equally among 4 packs of the chicken. So I went and washed my hands, I promise. And I am going to vacuum seal this. Now, I'm not going to vacuum seal everything I do today, The stuff that I'm not going to be going in and out of the bag, I'm going to vacuum seal. If it's something like diced onion, I'm going to put that in a Ziploc bag because chances are I may not need every bit of that onion at one time. And if that's the case, then I don't want to have to keep cutting the vacuum sealed bags and resealing. You know what I mean? It's just more of a headache. So something like this, when I pull this chicken out, I am just going to use both of these pieces of chicken. So I'm okay to vacuum seal that. But if I was going to put like a whole pack of chicken into the freezer in one bag or something, like trim it and put it in a bag, then I would put it in a big Ziploc freezer bag. And that way I could just get out what I wanted to. I hope that makes sense. But like I said, I use about 2 packs per meal that I cook. 2 pieces per meal that I cook. So that just works out for me. Do whatever works for your family and your house. All right, so the crock pot full of chicken that we did, this is what I'm doing to mine. Now, the reason I'm doing this crock pot chicken is because I want a bunch of shredded chicken. We do a lot of meals with shredded chicken in them. So I decided to go ahead and just cook up, and that way we could shred a whole bunch of chicken at one time. So I'm just going to mildly season these, some garlic powder, onion powder, and some salt and pepper. Because I don't know what I'm going to use this in, because it's a whole lot of chicken. So I'm not sure what recipe I'll use this in later, and I don't want to have like a smoky flavor if that's not what, the kind of dish I'm going to put it into. Does that make sense? So I want it seasoned a little bit, but I don't want a specific seasoning. Hopefully that makes a little sense. And then I just add maybe 1/4 to a 1/2 cup of water just to keep it from drying out. And then I'm going to go stick that on high and let it cook all day. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is break down my ground beef. Now, you don't have to vacuum seal anything. Let me just put that out there. If you don't have a vacuum sealer, it does not matter. You can do this in Ziploc bags. When I was growing up, Mama always bought in bulk, like big packs of stuff, and broke it down. So I've been doing that my entire life. And it was kind of weird to me that people don't do that because I just grew up doing it. So this pack of hamburger meat I was showing you, or ground beef, whatever you want to call it. We always just call it hamburger meat. It's kind of in sections a little bit. So it was easy for me to break these packs down. And these packs of ground beef are just under 5 pounds each. So I just split each of the big packs into 4. So each pack that I end up with will have a little over a pound of chicken. Not chicken, ground beef. But like I said, we always grew up doing this, so it's not a foreign concept to me, but I know that it is to some people. This is just an easier way to do it. It's a little bit cheaper, especially if you can find stuff on sale, to buy it in bulk and then break it down yourself into individual bags. So that is what I'm doing. One of the reasons I'm doing this today also, because again, I cook a lot at my house for this channel, and it gets expensive, y'all. It gets very expensive to put out 2 videos a week cooking. It really does. I'm not complaining, but I'm just, telling you why this, also works for me. But even before I had a YouTube channel, I did this. I did this with my kids growing up. My kids do this now at their own houses and all that. So, but what I'm doing is just flattening out my ground beef as much as I can. And that is just going to be easier. Look, I can't work the machine. It's going to be easier to store because it's just not going to take up as much room, and I can stack it all right on top of each other and have it go in my freezer. So that's what I'm doing. You can also, these, if you can see at the top, kind of close to the machine, there's a kind of a dark gray looking area. That's just where you can write like your date or whatever you want to write on there, what it is, if that was the case. And then we're just going to go through all of these. I ended up with 8 packs of ground beef. So I'm good to go on ground beef for a little while. I've restocked my freezer. So, I'll have what I need, because nothing's worse than going, oh, I really want this, and then, now I got to go to the store and buy it. So there you go. That is all of our ground beef. So the next thing that I am doing, now this is gonna give us two different things. I am gonna debone these rotisserie chickens because one thing, I love the rotisserie chicken meat. I use that when I make gumbo and stuff, and it's a headache. It's a headache to debone a chicken. I cannot stand doing it. It drives me insane. But I thought, you know what? I also want to make some homemade chicken broth. So we are going to do that today as well. So what I'm doing is just taking the little string off. And my chickens were cold. I had bought them the day before. So they're a little bit cold, so they were a little harder to get the meat off of. It's easier to debone them if they're warm, just FYI if you didn't know. But mine was already cold. So I'm just going to, like I said, take all this meat off. And I started to just take it out and just put it in my bag. But I'm very weird about chicken, y'all. And I know a lot of y'all probably are too. I don't like any bone, gristle, fat. I don't want any of that in my food. Now, I do know people that don't care. They'll throw bone and all in there and just eat around it. I can't do it. I cannot. If I bite into a piece of gristle, I'm done. I'm just done for the day. So what I'm doing is just roughly pulling all the meat off of the chicken. And then I'm going to go through it and really break it down and get all the fat and yucky stuff that I don't want on there. And then the bones, all the extra bones, gristle, fat, all the things I don't want to eat, I'm putting into my stock pot. Now, originally, I was just going to do one pot of, broth, but my pot's not big enough. This is the biggest pot I have, so I have a bigger one, but I didn't get it down. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I did 2 chickens because if you're going to do this, I mean, you might as well do it, right? And so I'm pulling the second chicken now, and I'm throwing everything in that one pot, and then I'm just going to break this down. So I ended up splitting the chicken that I took off the bone into 2 different bags. And like I said, that's what I use to make my gumbo. So now I have 2 bags of chicken ready for gumbo whenever I get ready to make it. Now, it's not cold here yet. It may never get cold here. Y'all know I lived out in South Louisiana. But when it does get cold, we're going to be ready for gumbo. So, and just to be clear, I don't wait till cold for gumbo a lot of times, but I just felt like I needed to say that, I guess. But I like chili even if it's hot outside. Matter of fact, I cooked chili yesterday. But anyway, so I deboned the chicken. I'm splitting the meat into 2 different bags, and all the leftover ooky stuff that I call it is going into the pot. So that's what we're going to use to make our broth. So for the 2 bags of chicken that I broke down, now if you're somebody who just wants this chicken like a few little pieces to put on a salad or something like that, then I would say put it in a Ziploc bag so you can just pull out what you need. But because I know what I'm going to use this chicken for, at least I think that's what I'm going to use it for. It is what I use rotisserie chicken for. But, I mean, who knows? I may get in the mood and decide to pull it out and use it for something else. But in my mind right now, it's for gumbo. So I am just going to vacuum seal these because I'm going to use all this chicken at once when I get ready to use it. And I need to get some different size bags because for some of this, not for this, but for a few of these things, I felt like I could have used a bag that was a little bit smaller, but this is the size I have, so that's what I'm using. And there won't be any recipes linked for y'all today because we're not really cooking any meals. This is just all about getting ingredients prepped. And I'm just, if you get ready to cook something, you don't always want to pull out everything and cut up an onion or dice up this or dice up that. I'm just trying to, like I said, to make my life a little easier. So hopefully this will inspire you to do that also so that your life will be a little easier when you get in the kitchen to cook. So what I did was split the chicken into 2 pots because that's my second biggest pot, even though it's not real big. And what I'm going to add into here, now there's a lot of different, if you look up a recipe for how to make broth, you're going to find 100 different ways to do it. This is just the way that I do mine. We like the flavor of it this way. So what I'm doing is just I've washed my carrots and my celery. I am going to put some celery and carrots into my freezer because I like to use them in soup, specifically chicken noodle soup when I make it. And so I want to have this ready. Now, if you've ever frozen vegetables before, you can't freeze a vegetable like this and expect to eat it raw out of the freezer, okay? Because it's not going to work for that. It's not going to retain the crunch or anything like that. They have a lot of water content, especially something like celery. So they're going to tend to mush when you take them out of the freezer. That is why I know that I'm just going to use these in something that they're going to be soft in anyway, like a soup. Okay, so that is why I'm doing this. I'm not going to blanch these. I don't need to do any of that for what I need to use it for. So I'm just explaining to you that's, my rationale behind that. And I'm putting them in Ziploc bags because I may not use it all at once. So remember when I was telling y'all a little bit earlier. So what I'm doing is I've got my little garbage bowl, as Rachel Ray would say, and I'm putting all of the ends, the peelings, and all that into this bowl. That is also going to go into our pot to help flavor our broth. Now, you saw in the little grocery haul at the beginning that I have bell pepper. I do not put bell pepper into my into my broth because it changes the flavor, especially the bell peppers that I have, the red and the red, yellow, and orange. They're sweeter bell peppers, and I don't like the flavor that it gives to broth. So I don't add bell pepper. Some people put all kinds of different vegetable scraps in there. Just for me personally, I do like the carrots and celery, and I'll add some onion and garlic and stuff, but I don't add like bell pepper and things to mine. So now I have a bag of carrots and a bag of celery all diced up going into the freezer, so when I want to pull it out for soup, it is ready to go. And I don't have to worry about trying to buy it fresh and then the rest of it going bad in my refrigerator. Because, for me, I don't eat a lot of celery unless it's like in soup or something. So if I buy celery, as bad as it is, 9 times out of 10, I end up throwing some of it away because it just doesn't get eaten at my house. So this is a great way to ensure that you're not wasting the stuff that you're buying also. So I got those carrots and onions all chopped up. Now these are just extra pieces that I had. I went ahead and washed those up, and I'm just going to chop like these full pieces up to throw into my pots to help with the flavor because I didn't have a whole lot left after what I bagged up. And the same thing with my carrots. I had a little bag of baby carrots because I used the whole bag to dice up to put in the freezer. So I had this little bag of baby carrots. So I just opened those up and threw those right over into my pot. Now, if you're just going to use whole carrots in your broth, you don't have to peel them. Wash them. Please wash them. But you don't have to peel them or anything. So the next thing that I'm doing, this is obviously something I use in almost every dish that I cook, but it's a headache to have to cut up an onion, drag out the cutting board and all that every single time I need diced onion. And I'm going to dice all the onion that I'm doing today. I bought a 10-pound bag from Sam's. Almost everything I bought today came from Sam's, just because it's cheaper to do it that way. And so what I'm doing is just cutting everything up. I'm going to quarter it so it fits in my little chopper. You don't have to have one of those choppers. It is in my Amazon store. If you want one, they're very convenient, but be very careful when you use them because they are very, very sharp, and I have cut my fingers on them. So just be very, very careful if you get one and use it. So I also, when I do broth, I also choose to use the onion peels and everything in mine. Some people don't do that. It does make your broth darker. So if you're looking for a super light broth, like kind of what you get at the store, then maybe leave the onion peels and stuff out. But like I said, I do add the onion peels to mine. Now, what I was showing you just then is sometimes I won't add in the root of the onion because it has all those little hairy looking pieces, and I'm always afraid there may be like dirt or something trapped in there. So, I mean, not that it's really going to hurt you because you're going to cook it, and if there was any dirt in it, it'll be fine. But I'm just kind of going through and picking out the pieces I want, and I'm just going to throw all of that, I'm splitting it up between the two pots that I have. And don't worry, we're also going to add some seasoning to this. But one of the best things about homemade broth is, well, number one, it's homemade, so that's always best, right? But you also can give it whatever flavor you want it to have. You know, I mean, if you are somebody who can't do a lot of salt, then you don't even have to add salt to it if you don't want to. If you just want to do lower salt, then don't add as much salt. So then I just quartered up a big onion and also stuck that in there. So for my seasonings for my broth, I add in probably about a tablespoon of parsley. I throw in a couple of bay leaves. Again, there's really no recipe for this. I just do whatever I feel like doing on that day. And then I add in a big spoonful of garlic, just minced garlic to each one. I didn't have any fresh garlic, so garlic it is. And then I'm going to add in some salt because I do like a little salt in my broth, y'all. And I'm not going to add any pepper in here. A lot of people add peppercorns, but we have to remember too that our our rotisserie chicken had seasonings in it as well. But you can add any kind of seasonings you want. I didn't need to add garlic and onion powder because I'm adding garlic and I have a ton of onion in there. But just do it to your taste. And as it cooks on the stove, you can taste it. And, once it really starts turning into broth after it's really broke those vegetables and stuff down, and you can taste it and add extra seasonings if you want to. So I'm just filling up my pots with water. I'm not really measuring. I'm just pouring it in there until it gets close to the top. And then what I do is I'm going to stick these over onto the stove, and I'm going to let mine cook at least 3 hours. I let it come to a boil. But you don't want it to boil hard. Here's the thing. I let mine get almost to a boil, and then I cut it down to a simmer, and I let it simmer for several hours, at least 3, but I let it go kind of all day. And now I'm just going to put my bacon into Ziploc bags because this is something that we'll just maybe grab a piece out and, munch on it or add it to breakfast or whatever. But the broth, if you boil it, that's when it creates all that foam and that gross that you need to scrape off the top of the pan. So I don't bring mine to a full boil. I just let it heat up real good, and then I let it simmer for several hours, and then I find I don't have to deal with all that foamy stuff. It just works for me. Now this is the worst. I got this darn bell pepper, and it was like the whole top was mush, and I was like, that's so annoying to me. Not that anybody could have known it, down in the pack, but it still annoys me because bell peppers are expensive, y'all. But anyway, especially the colored ones. The green ones are pretty cheap, but the red and yellow and orange ones are so dang expensive. But again, I get a lot better price on them at Sam's. That's why I buy the 2 big packs. So I am just dicing up or chopping up my bell pepper. Now, some people just chop them and just go with whatever. I don't like the seeds. I think they're bitter. And the pith, isn't that what it's called? The white part? It's bitter to me too, so I always cut that out. But the tops of my peppers, I do pull that centerpiece out and then just cut around that and save all of that because that's all good stuff. And then I'm just going to put this in my little chopper, just like with the other thing, and with the other things that we did, and then just dice it up until we get everything diced, get all of it done. And I ended up, I think, with 5 bags of diced onion and 4 bags of bell pepper, I think. It was a lot. It was a lot, but the bell peppers and stuff, like I was saying earlier, you're not going to be able to eat these fresh on a salad or anything. But these are fantastic cooked into things. If you're doing stuffed bell pepper, if you're doing a soup that you want to put bell pepper in, or chili, or any of that, this is perfect for that. All right, so the next thing I wanted to get done was some cheese, because we do a lot of shredded cheese around here, and I do buy the big bags for convenience a lot of times, but I just feel like it does taste better if you shred it yourself, and it definitely melts better. So I decided to buy 3 big, these are the 16-ounce blocks of cheese, so with like a pound of cheese. And why I've got the smallest knife I had out to do this, who knows? Who knows? But I'm just going to cut it into manageable pieces, and then I'm just going to get this all shredded up in my little cheese grater. I love this thing. I cut potatoes when I'm making potato chips and stuff. I use this thing, shredding cheese, shredding carrots, anything you need to shred. This one comes with, it's in my Amazon store, but this one comes with like 4 different blade attachments or something, so you can cut all kinds of stuff with it. It just makes life really easy. So I'm just shredding those up, and I split that into 2 Ziploc bags, and then I'm just going to throw those in the freezer. And I also didn't realize that some people didn't know that you can freeze cheese. Now, I wouldn't freeze it in the block. I've never done that. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know if you could or not, but like shredded, it's perfect. It works out great. I just throw these over in the freezer, and then I can just pull out a bag of cheese whenever I need it. And I've never had any issues pulling cheese out of the freezer and using it. It works the same exact way as if you bought it fresh. So I shredded up a block of mozzarella. I shredded up a block of Colby Jack or Monterey Jack. And then I shredded up just a block of mild cheddar. And that way I'll have cheese for whatever I need cheese for. And I got 2 bags of each one. So 6 bags of cheese. Not too shabby for 3 seconds of work, because that shredder makes everything really quick. So here is our broth after about 3 hours, maybe 4 hours. I don't know. Time gets away from me when I'm doing stuff like this. But I just have it on just a, kind of a low little simmer there. And this is the color that my broth is, which you're going to see it when I put it in the thing anyway. But the vegetables are super soft. The chicken is just falling apart over there. And yeah, so we've just got our homemade broth. But you see, we don't have a lot of foam or fat or anything like that on the top. So that is what it's going to look like. Now I need to get it put into some containers. So obviously we don't want all these little remnants of vegetables and meat and bones and all that. So I'm putting it through my little mesh or my big mesh strainer just down into a bowl. And my bowl does have a spout on it to make it easier to pour. And I'm just going to strain this out to make sure that we just end up with broth. We don't end up with any of the other stuff in there. And I didn't want to take the chance of trying to pour that and all of those things falling over the side of my strainer. So I'm just going to scoop it out, because there's a lot of broth that gets kind of trapped in between like the layers of onion and stuff like that. And you don't want to lose any of this good broth. Now, we're going to get a lot of broth out of this. Y'all will see in a minute. It doesn't look like it's going to be a whole lot, but it's a lot. For me, it's a lot, for my house. So we are going to just scoop this out. I'm going to put it right down into the strainer, like I said, and then I'm going to just pour the rest of the broth in there. And then I take this spoon and I press down on what is inside my strainer to try to squeeze all the rest of that liquid out of there. Because again, we want to make sure, that's been cooking for a long time. We worked hard to get this broth going, and we want to make sure we get all that we can. So then I just take my vegetables after I've mashed them and strained them. See how much is still coming out of there? And then I'm just going to put that over into my pan and put it out to the side. Now, you can do whatever you want to with all those little remnants and stuff. I throw them away. I don't have chickens or anything like that. But, do with yours whatever you want to. But this ended up making, you'll see, but I got like 4 of these big containers. They're like 32-ounce containers, and then 4 16-ounce containers, because I was like, sometimes I don't need 4 cups of broth. Sometimes I just need a little bit. So I wanted to freeze them in different sizes so that I could grab whatever I needed and I don't end up wasting any of this. So that's what I ended up doing, and now we have a ton of homemade broth. Now our chicken has been cooking all day while we've been doing everything else, and now it is done. So there's a lot of liquid down in that pan or in the crock pot, as you can see. Don't throw that out. This is, okay, the reason I add, usually I add chicken broth to my crock pot, like a 1/4 cup of chicken broth, but I didn't have any made yet. So I added that little bit of water, remember? And so once it's done, I shred my chicken up, and then I'm going to let it sit here and cool down. But if you don't, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, you do what you want to at your house. But for me, if you don't put a little bit of liquid in there, and because chicken does make its own liquid, but in my opinion, in my house, I like to have a little bit of extra liquid because that way I don't end up with dry shredded chicken. Okay. I find that if you don't put a little something in there to kind of help it, the chicken dries out, and nobody wants to eat dried out chicken. So once it has cooled down, you're going to just bag this up, and we're going to, I do vacuum seal this. I use this shredded chicken, excuse me, just for reference of what you can use it for. I use this in my enchiladas, chicken spaghetti, quesadillas, what is it called? Chicken pot pie. Any of that I use shredded chicken for. And when you're making something, especially like, I guess for me with like my chicken pot pie, just for example, there's a lot of steps, I feel like, that goes into it. Well, the chicken pot pie, really not. I think they're pretty easy. And if you haven't made my chicken pot pie recipe, go find it and make it. It's delicious. But I just find that having things on hand like this, it just makes it so much easier. It's less steps you have to take when you're cooking. It saves dishes, it saves time, everything. And I'm telling you, if you don't do this kind of prep already, please start doing it, because I'm telling you, you're going to be shocked at how much easier it makes your life in the kitchen. So my broth has cooled down, and you see we have this little layer of fat right here on top. You can skim that off and get rid of it if you want to. I find, especially on this particular day of making the broth, it's not that much. And so I just left it. It's not going to hurt whether you leave it or take it off, but I just left mine in there, and it's going to be fine. But if you want to scrape yours off, you absolutely can. So we got our broth all sealed up. All the containers, all those things are in my Amazon store if y'all need any of those things. I know a lot of times y'all ask. So I try to link just about everything I can. I have almost everything in my Amazon store, and for the people who have told me they don't use Amazon, that's why I have started putting links that will pop up on the screen that are like to Walmart and stuff, and that way you can get either the same thing I have or something very similar from somewhere that isn't Amazon if you need to do that. If you're someone who doesn't use Amazon, or you don't get Amazon delivery where you are, or whatever the case is. But anyway, we spent all day doing this, y'all, and we ended up with 6 bags of cheese. We ended up with 8 containers of broth, 4 large, 4 small, 4 bags of peppers, 5 bags of onions, 8 packs of ground beef, 4 packs of just regular chicken we can use for whatever, some shredded chicken, some rotisserie chicken, bacon. We have so many things in the freezer now. So I hope that this helps somebody being able to see this, and I hope that you do this at your house. All right, that is all that I have for y'all today, and I will catch y'all on the next one. Bye, y'all.